Have you ever wondered what happened before Simba's roar echoed across the Pridelands? Before the tragedy, before the exile, what was the story of the lion who would become the villain we all know? Let's journey back to a time when two princes, Mufasa and Taka, were the Huskubs. Yes, you heard that right. Scar wasn't always Scar. He was born Taka, a name that in some interpretations means dirt or want. Imagine growing up with a name like that, while your older brother Mufasa, whose name means king, is destined for the throne. Mufasa was strong, charismatic, and born to rule. Taka, on the other hand, was clever, cunning, but always second best. He lived perpetually in his brother's magnificent shadow. Growing up, the two were inseparable, or so it seemed. They explored the vast savannas, played under the watchful eyes of their father, King Ahadi, and learned the ways of the kingdom. But even in their youthful games, a subtle tension brewed. Mufasa, with his natural strength and regal bearing, always seemed to come out on top. Taka, while intelligent, often felt overlooked and undervalued. His father, Ahadi, seemed to favor Mufasa, grooming him for the crown, while Taka was left to find his own place. This constant comparison, this feeling of being the lesser son, began to plant a seed of resentment in Taka's heart. He craved the respect and power that came so easily to Mufasa. He believed he was just as capable, if not more so, because he had to be smarter to keep up. He started to believe that the laws of nature, the very circle of life his father preached, were unfair. Why should birth order decide destiny? It was this burning ambition that led Taka down a darker path. He began to associate with the outcasts of the Pride Lands, the hyenas, Shenzi, Bonsai, and Ed. They were shunned by the lions, seen as vulgar scavengers. But Taka saw something else. He saw loyalty, or at least a hunger for power that mirrored his own. He promised them a future where their bellies would never be empty, a place of respect in the new order he envisioned. To them, he wasn't the king's second son. He was a leader who understood their struggle. One fateful day, Taka devised a plan to make his father finally see his worth. He wanted to prove he was just as brave and capable as Mufasa. He tricked his older brother into a confrontation with a furious water buffalo, hoping to stage a heroic rescue. The plan was simple: lure Mufasa into danger, then swoop in and save the day, earning their father's praise. But plans, especially those born from jealousy, have a way of going horribly wrong. The buffalo, enraged and powerful, was more than Taka had bargained for. Instead of a heroic display, the situation spiraled into chaos. Mufasa, true to his nature, fought bravely, but it was Taka who ended up in grave danger. The buffalo, in its fury, struck Taka across the face with its horn, leaving a deep, bleeding gash over his eye. Mufasa managed to drive the beast away and saved his brother's life, but the physical wound was nothing compared to the wound to his pride. When their father, King Ahadi, found out, he was not impressed. He was furious at Taka's recklessness and deceit. Instead of praise, Taka received a lecture on wisdom and responsibility. And the scar, The scar remained, a permanent, ugly reminder of his failure, his jealousy, and his miscalculation. From that day on, he was no longer Taka. He insisted on being called Scar. He wore the mark not just as a wound, but as a declaration. It was a symbol of his pain, his resentment, and the new identity he had forged in the fires of his own ambition. The Name Taka, the second son, was dead. In his place stood Scar, a lion defined by his grievance against the world, and especially against his brother. The bond between the two brothers was shattered. Mufasa, now king after their father's passing, tried to reach out to mend the rift. But Scar would have none of it. He saw Mufasa's every gesture of kindness as pity, every word of counsel as a condescending reminder of his own perceived inferiority. He retreated further into the shadows, his heart hardening with each passing day. He spent more and more time with the hyenas, plotting, whispering, and feeding the darkness within him. His intellect, once a source of pride, now became his most dangerous weapon. He was the master of manipulation, the whisperer of lies. He observed the court, studied the pride's weaknesses, and waited. He knew he couldn't beat Mufasa in a direct fight. Mufasa was too strong, too loved. So Scar planned a different kind of battle. Battle of wits, of treachery. Then, a new light entered the Pride Lands. The birth of Simba. To everyone else, it was a joyous occasion, the continuation of the circle of life. For Scar, it was the final insult. He had been pushed back once again, not just second in line, but now a distant third. The new cub wasn't just Mufasa's son. He was the living embodiment of everything Scar had lost, everything he felt he had been denied. This was the tipping point. Simba's birth solidified Scar's resolve. There would be no more waiting in the shadows. His jealousy had now festered into a cold, calculated hatred. He saw only one path to the throne he so desperately coveted: the removal of both Mufasa and his heir. The plan he began to formulate was more sinister, more diabolical than anything he had attempted before. It would not be a foolish trick with a buffalo. It would be a masterstroke of betrayal that would tear the royal family apart and plunge the Pride Lands into darkness. He would use Simba's own curiosity and innocence against him. He would exploit Mufasa's love for his son. The stage was set in a narrow gorge, with a stampeding herd of wildebeest as the instrument of his vengeance. He whispered poisonous words into Simba's ear, luring him to the gorge. Then, he signaled his hyena army to trigger the stampede, creating the perfect storm of chaos and terror. And as Mufasa desperately fought to save his son, Scar saw his moment, high on the cliff face, with his brother clinging to the ledge, begging for help. Scar looked into Mufasa's eyes. "Long live the king," he snarled, and with a final, brutal act of betrayal, he sent his brother falling to his doom. The rise of the new king was sealed not with a roar of triumph, but with a whisper of treachery. The shadow that had followed Scar his entire life had finally consumed the sun, casting the Pride Lands into a long, dark night. This is the tragic story of how a prince named Taka became the villain Scar. It's a powerful reminder that the greatest monsters are often not born, but made, forged by jealousy, resentment, and the choices they make in the darkness. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this dive into the lore of the Pride Lands, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories. See you next time.